выпьем старого вина.
Delve into the paranormal world of the eccentric and the grotesque. It's shocking, yet amazing. Bodies, dead or alive. But beware the faint of heart when you journey into the unknown.
The realm of the bizarre is one of extreme contrast and startling incongruities that may shock or even offend. So be prepared. What you see and hear may be beyond your current experience. I'm Jay Robinson, and I ask you to suspend your disbelief. Remember that this isn't fiction. Oh no, simply another version of reality. Humans crave entertainment, and it comes in countless forms. Somewhere inside many of us is the need to watch the bizarre and unusual. Those experiences that will transport us, however briefly, outside ourselves and our comfortable, ordered lives. In many cases, these are things we don't want to happen to us, or things we dare not do ourselves, yet they grab our attention. No one understood this base human need more than the master showman, Phineas T. Barnum. When the circus was imported to America in the 19th century, entertainment was at a premium. We embraced the concept, but it took the genius of P.T. Barnum to exploit that need and elevate the small traveling circus to a genuine spectacle. Barnum recognized that desire to experience the danger and repulsion of certain activities. Thus, he legitimized the freak show during his time. Defunct for decades, this bizarre form of Americana is making a comeback. A man with a vision has the unique ability to turn both phrases and stomachs simultaneously. Known as Jimmy the Geek in Venice Beach, California, Rose moved to Seattle and began to pack in customers. Like-minded performers came out of hiding, and a phenomenon was reincarnated.
The reason I got in this is because I was, as a young kid, growing up next to the state fairgrounds. They would recruit the neighbor hoodlums to Vin soft drinks, etc. That gave us access to the last generations of sideshows, a truer period when they had human marbles, people that could alter their bodies to do amazing things. And I can remember people walking out of the tent talking to themselves about, for example, the man that could put a blowtorch out with his tongue.
Born with normal bodies, the performers of the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow are self-made freaks.
When it comes up to my turn at bat, basically, everything just kind of goes a little bit different shade of color, I suppose. Maybe a little deeper blue. And, I kind of go crazy. I basically growl and snarl, do my best to be my worst. The madness kind of takes over, and you kind of lose control.
This is the world record, the Enigma. Marked for life, the Enigma.
Rose has an understanding of human nature that helps explain the popularity of this modern-day freak show.
Because humans watch humans. That's why you have to look at a car accident. Anytime a human's in an unfamiliar situation, it creates interest.
Ladies,
And it was always my goal to put together a fast-paced, edge-of-the-seat car accident without the severed bodies. But, you know, it's my job to make the atrocities palatable.
Many would argue the palatability of the spectacle, but Rose, it is true, played to throngs of X-generation trendies with primitive dispositions of their own.
It's not just a circus of fakeness. This is a real circus. It's a circus of life. We're seeing it.
Well, I wanted to see all the really gross and bizarre things.
Yeah, they're freaks. It's unreal. I've never seen anything like this before.
Viewed from within our usual cultural context, these performers seem extreme at best. Throughout time, many different cultures have engaged in similar activities in a desire to push the boundaries of human experience, to find a collective awareness that perhaps gives special meaning to existence.
You have to have a healthy dose of fear to do these things. See, anybody can put their face in broken glass and let somebody stomp on the back of their head, but they're going to come out looking like hamburger.
it's the lowest form of entertainment. Thank you for coming. Get the f*** off my head. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Rose, the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow.
With the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow, one thing is guaranteed. What you see is what you get. Provided, of course, that you have the stomach for it. At the Venice Beach Boardwalk, where Rose got his start, a carnival atmosphere reigns daily. Here there are no rules, no licenses required. Dearth of offbeat performers anxious to take advantage of the freedom.
All right, listen up. Watch my show or I'll kill you. All right, one show only. Let's go. Come on, people. I come from a dysfunctional family.
Jerry Rubin is Venice Beach's resident activist and de facto historian.
Venice Beach started naturally. No one invited people to come out here. Street performers and artists have been here. In the beach generation, there were poets, and they had their struggles, and people tried to restrict them too. All I can say is that freedom is a fight, and it's an ongoing fight. But while we're fighting for freedom, we can all have a good time too, and enjoy ourselves.
And I'll tell you what, you stay the whole show. If you don't move, you don't get up, I'll give you $50.
That'll work, man.
That'll work?
That'll work.
But you can't move. If you move, you lose the money.
I'm gonna move.
All right, we'll see.
Oh, you blew that
Hey,
guy's
come
mind.
back. I was
blew
just
his
kidding, home. Come on, man.
People refer to Venice Beach as the street performing capital of the world. This is hard to dispute since people from all over the world come to the Venice Boardwalk to see these unusual acts. And who would want to miss Charles Marsh, self-described world's best topsy-turvy yodeler? It may be the cheapest entertainment in town, but it's hard to deny the compelling nature of the very odd Venice Beach street performers.
This program is brought to you in part.
So far we've seen performers who do strange things just for the fun of it, or for the challenge of pushing the envelope of acceptable behavior. But Fakir Mustafa, the paternal master of the modern primitive movement, is not essentially a performer. Rather, he is on a more spiritual quest. Since his early teens, Fakir has been involved in deliberate, ritualized modification of his torso. Fakir is publisher of Body Play magazine for individuals who wish to use their bodies for self-expression and spiritual exploration. Fakir envisions ritualized pain as a means to achieve altered states, leave the body, and enter what he terms pure consciousness.
I found out there are indeed what I feel are forces, great beings, something in the parallel universe out here that does have a great interest in those who would seek through the body, who would experiment and express through the body. It's alien to our culture, but it's rapidly being accepted and understood in our culture.
Fakir had his first out-of-body experience at the age of 17, which inspired him to embark on his personal spiritual quest through what he calls body play.
Up until that time, I had felt that I was my body. When I looked in the mirror, that was me. Now, when I looked at my body against the wall, I said, if that's not me, who's me? This was my first transformative experience. It colored everything that happened thereafter. After that, I didn't seem to worry very much. I felt somehow a feeling of invincibility about these things. So I continued on, and I kept doing these body adventures, making and laying on beds of nails, piercing myself and pulling and ripping on it.
Fakir continued his experiments for decades, then began to expand to Oriental practices.
This was the arched framework with some 100 rods pierced into your chest and back, where you dance around in an ecstatic state. We spent several days getting ready. I fasted again, was sleepless, went through the traditional preparations, and then early, like 6 in the morning, one Sunday morning, I did that. That was a fantastic experience. Again, I floated up out of my body while I was in this iron framework.
Raised in the Dakotas, Fakir Muzaffar was greatly influenced by the Mandan and Dakota tribes and the Okipa, or Sundance, the traditional rites of passage.
I had also wanted to be pierced and hung up like the Mandans where I grew up. This was a major ritual, and this was a very, very heavy piece of body play.
Fakir claims that during the intense out-of-body experience resulting from this ritual, he met his own great white spirit and was instructed to become a shaman and role model. Though Fakir makes no claims to be a showman or entertainer, we see him here making one of his rare public appearances.
What I'm doing here is showing people some possibilities. At least they have the idea that there are things you can do that seem like very difficult or impossible to do with the body, and then you do it right there in their face, and it makes them go home and think.
This segment illustrates a unique lifestyle, which includes body play that is extremely dangerous. Such an extraordinary ritual is best left to the realm of the bizarre. People from earlier cultures experience the world differently from those of us in more contemporary societies. Their use of body alteration contribute to their transitional rites of passage. These rituals help them confirm community solidarity and the sacredness of common values. Enter the modern primitives, who culturally couldn't be further from those aboriginal peoples, yet emulate their adornments. To many, these body alterations might be considered nothing short of self-mutilation. In the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco, modern primitives gravitate to the Nomad Piercing Studio, where admiration and concern for those primitive cultures are translated into eccentric body art.
My prime focus in life right now is to, through my own personal body art and my business, to be able to reconnect people with the more ancient arts, which I feel that Western society is almost totally disassociated from. Piercing is very popular, especially on the coasts, you know, New York and San Francisco. But it's not for primary reasons of, you know, people seeking spiritual enlightenment. It's because it's cool and because everyone's doing it.
I just wish that more people understood their cultures and where they're from, you know. Native Americans stretch their ears, South Americans stretch their ears. Everybody in the world did it, and nobody seems to, you know, realize their past.
Despite their looks and motives, be it their concern for indigenous peoples, the power of blending body and mind, environmental action, or simply to be cool, these modern primitives possess an attitude that is both unique and, at the very least, eccentrically bizarre. One constant of mankind is our lifelong love affair with mysteries. Not content to let the unexplained remain that way, we strive for answers to our questions, no matter how bizarre the outcome. Do large, elusive creatures prowl the periphery of human civilization? Does a population of prehistoric monsters inhabit a secluded island? Does a race of giant ape men dwell in the North American wilderness? Have carnivorous marsupials cheated extinction at land's end? What otherworldly creatures have remained hidden from mankind's relentless prying over the millennia? The answers may lie in the efforts of intrepid intellectual explorers known as cryptozoologists. J. Richard Greenwell of the International Society of Cryptozoology explains this largely unknown fringe science.
Cryptozoology is the study of unverified animals. That is, animals which may be known to native peoples, but they have not been scientifically verified by zoology. So what we try to do is see if there's anything to these kinds of reports, and we're not saying that all these animals necessarily exist. Perhaps very few of them exist. Perhaps none of them exist. But it's still worth checking out.
Discoveries of mystifying creatures often validate persistent native legends, yet most cryptozoological finds are purely accidental. For millions of years, the remote Indonesian island of Komodo has been home to a primordial species of monitor lizard unknown anywhere else since the Jurassic period, some 130 million years ago. Rumors about giant dragons with vicious talons and shark-like teeth persisted for centuries. The Komodo dragons weren't studied by scientists until 1912. Although not the fire-breathing creatures of mythology, the carnivorous Komodo dragons remain the fiercest lizards encountered to date. These amphibious carnivores have been known to consume humans, leaving nary a trace. In 1981, Richard Greenwell accompanied fellow researcher Roy Mackal to the Republic of the Congo in search of a legendary semi-aquatic dinosaur-like creature known as Mokele Mbembe. An elephant hunter led the bold explorers to a trail in the Likawala swamp that the hunter believed was made by a huge, un-elephant-like creature. Greenwell and Mackal observed tree branches broken at a considerable height and a trail that led to the water with no corresponding egress. Circumstantial evidence at best. Later, the Congolese zoologist on the expedition returned to the Likawala swamp and reported actually seeing the legendary creature. To date, no reliable evidence has come to light. However, the swamp is virtually inaccessible and covers several thousand square miles. Could such a creature reside undetected? Who knows what other extraordinary creatures still defy discovery while lurking in the unknown? Perpetually shrouded in mist, a remote mountain wilderness in Southeast Asia is home to one of the world's most mercurial mammals. A creature so secretive it has never been photographed in its natural habitat, and so elusive it wasn't known to the outside world until 1992. The World Wildlife Fund sponsored a scientific expedition to survey animals in the isolated and mysterious Vietnamese rainforest. Here in the Vu Quang Nature Reserve, the expedition team encountered villagers who displayed trophies of a large deer-like animal completely unknown to biological science. Subsequent DNA tests verified the Vu Quang ox as an entirely new genus and species. Not since the Cambodian coupre was identified over a half-century ago, in 1937, had another large mammal been discovered by Western biologists. The discovery of the Vu Quang ox is a remarkable event. Little is known of its behavior because the dense jungle environment with its blood-sucking parasites is so hostile to human invaders. Confiscated from hunters, this young calf was the first living specimen of Vu Quang ox to be studied. The most bizarre characteristic of this new species is its unique facial flaps. In 1994, a live example of the giant muntjac, a new species of deer, was discovered in the forest, making the Vu Quang Reserve a treasure trove for zoologists. From what obscure locale will the next bizarre example of a cryptozoological phenomenon emerge? What manner of beast will it be? One that's already considered extinct? In 1936, the last known thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, died in captivity, appearing to be a cross between a fox, wolf, tiger, and hyena. It was actually related to the opossum. Though officially judged to be extinct, various sightings over the years indicate this phantom marsupial may yet survive. And the cryptozoological controversy rages. Is it dead or still alive? This enigmatic creature continues to evade the definitive verdict of science. One of the most bizarre quests in modern times is for the legendary Bigfoot, or Sasquatch. Tales of this gigantic, extraordinary hominid have persisted for centuries. Bigfoot is by far North America's most mystifying cryptozoological puzzle. Virtually every state and province has had reports of forest anthropoids lurking around the perimeter of human settlements, and many accounts are supported by gigantic footprints.
This track here is from Grays Harbor County in Washington State, and they were brought here by a deputy sheriff. They made a cast of these footprints, which we have here at the Society. You can see the crack here in the ground. A cast is like a negative, so we're really looking at the left footprint rather than the right.
The Bigfoot proto-human theory is perhaps not totally far-fetched. There have been several thousand sightings from all manner of human beings. Could they all be mistaken? Thousands of Bigfoot tracks have been discovered over the years near settlements and in remote wilderness areas. Either a sophisticated hoax has been perpetrated for centuries, or in our forests dwell gigantic proto-humans tenaciously clinging to survival. If they exist, what an incredible and bizarre discovery that would be. What happens when we die? Is there life after death? If so, what form does the afterlife take? This is possibly man's most basic puzzle. For the moment we become aware of our own mortality, the question nags. We seek the answer in a variety of places. For many, the comfort of religious belief supplies the answers. Others take a more bizarre route and try to go directly to the source, as it were. The seance can be considered one of the traditional methods of attempted communication with the dead. Harry Houdini was obsessed with the idea of communicating with his dead mother and spent years unmasking unscrupulous mediums. his personal quest was never fulfilled. Technologists, on the other hand, have typically turned to electronic means of the attempt. Even the venerable Thomas Edison spent his later years constructing a device he was hopeful would help the spirits communicate with the physical realm. Not a believer in ghosts, Edison merely wanted to give spirits, if they existed, a better opportunity to express themselves. Shrouded in secrecy, his device was either unsuccessful or unfinished at the time of his death in 1931. The metaphysical torch dropped by this great inventor when he died was picked up by others and continues to this day. One notable example from a company called Metascience is the Spiricom, or spirit communicator, devised in the late 1970s by William O'Neill with the alleged psychic assistance of the deceased physicist Dr. George Mueller. O'Neill's channeling abilities enabled him to receive enough information from Dr. Mueller and other spiritual entities to develop the Spiricom. Together, O'Neill and Mueller are said to have provided one of the first conversations between a human being and spirit being using a mechanical device. This is a recording which they describe as the voice of the spirit talking through the Spiricom. You're endlessly fascinated with the supernatural. Children delight in being frightened by ghost stories. These days, movies, television, and literature are filled with haunting images and stories of angels and near-death experiences. People are frequently distressed when they perceive they are in the midst of paranormal happenings. Professional ghostbusters are often called in to determine if these occurrences are of supernatural origin. They employ such devices as thermal radiometers, oscilloscopes, magnetometers, and video surveillance equipment. The Bonta Inn in Bonta, California was constructed in 1879. The last 25 years it has been the scene of a number of paranormal phenomena. In other words, it seems the Bonta Inn is haunted. Current owner Joan Borland tells us about it.
And we've had many incidences. We've had change stack in the cash register, objects moving, candles lighting, doors slam, doors open. We've had sightings by 3 different people. We've had bells ring in the kitchen.
Joan believes the entity bedeviling the staff and customers of the Bonta Inn is Tony Gukin, a previous owner who died of cardiac arrest behind the bar in 1968. To find out more about the curious happenings at the inn, Joan contacted the Office of Paranormal Investigations in Orinda, California.
All right, good.
Lloyd Auerbach, a parapsychologist with eminent credentials, and his associate director, Barbara Gallagher, traveled to the Bonta Inn to investigate the phenomena. They also enlisted the aid of veteran parapsychologist Kerry Gaynor.
I want to thank you for sitting down and answering.
While the staff is being interviewed, Kerry and Lloyd set up the equipment.
Well, it's pretty much an everyday happening. It's nothing to see pots and pans fly, beer bottles fly. He never does anything to hurt anyone. It's just mischievous.
Once in a while, the door will lock by itself, the front door. And usually if there's some sort of little incident or something, it's like Tony the ghost will look after whoever's here. So therefore, we didn't have to deal with them anymore.
Thereby separating the people who
Right.
are fighting.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned the coin stacking
Yes.
in the cash register. Can you tell me about what the significance of that is?
From what I understand, he had a habit of stacking the coins, and he would stack them in the till himself, and this was just a little quirk that he had.
One of the more unique facets about this particular case happens to be people over the years who did not know Tony Gukin, who were able to pick him up out of a lineup, so to speak, out of a photo lineup. We came through with a Japanese psychic by the name of Aiko Gibo. Mrs. Gibo, who had not been to this place, did not know anything, apparently saw the ghost of a man in the front bar area. When I brought her in the back room, I asked her to look around the room and tell me if anything looked familiar, or anyone look familiar on the wall. There are a number of photographs, including photographs of individual people, couples, groups of people. She picked Tony Guckin out with one quick look around the room. That's happened a number of times. People have been able to pick him out, having seen supposedly an apparition, and not seen what he looked like, and not knowing that this picture was Tony Guckin's. They've been able to identify that. That's important, because that means that something else is going on. Whether there's a ghost here or not, there is something going on that allows people to identify who this ghost supposedly was without having known anything about this place.
Setting up the equipment is a complicated affair. Video cameras with built-in recorders are aimed at probable locations. A thermal radiometer is adjusted so that a base temperature reading can be taken. A baseline magnetometer reading is set on the oscilloscope. Then the painstaking search begins for areas with abnormal readings.
Just for a moment, yeah. It's shot right up at multiplied by 10.
Soon, Lloyd detects a mysterious and elusive electromagnetic field. Further evidence of Tony's presence occurs when the bartender checks the cash register.
These weren't stacked before.
No, you see how he stacked them right here? Good job, Tony. See the quarters? Look at all that.
Do you feel that Tony's around right now?
Yeah, I do.
On one video recording, a placemat was seen floating off the table. Just at the same time, there was some sort of electronic interference. Was it poltergeist activity or a stray breeze?
Tonight we came into the restaurant for another try to see if we could pick up any phenomena. Joni at one point did feel that Tony was around, and we did for a short time get some very unusual readings on the magnetometers. It's kind of hard when you're here only for a short time to really hope for anything, but we had hoped for something to happen as we normally do. But we did talk to a number of people, and including the bartender, who had an experience, several experiences here. And it's the people, the witnesses themselves, that are the best evidence in many respects. Although we really want to try to see something happen, it's talking to the people and hearing things along the way that help us determine if there's any sort of pattern or anything we can do next and how we want to proceed with the future investigations.
For the time being, the mysterious happenings at the Banta Inn remain just that, mysterious. As long as paranormal phenomena occur, and until we have the definitive answer to life after death, the quest will continue, no matter how bizarre the circumstances. Said the dead men tell no tales. However, for a growing and controversial group of graveyard detectives, it is no longer the case. With the high-tech tools of modern forensic science, these specialists are coaxing secrets from the dead, and these are sometimes the tales of murder, mayhem, and butchery. Have the ability to solve mysteries of the grave that are hundreds of years old. I guess you'd have to call it beyond bizarre. If you were asked to think of a famous detective, you might come up with a character like the fictional Sherlock Holmes, who was infinitely methodical and logical in his search for the truth. These days, when truth is often stranger than fiction, today's investigators will sometimes solve crimes that definitely can be called bizarre. Today's forensic sleuths bring an arsenal of modern technological weapons to bear upon the mysteries of the dead, as well as an infinite variety of skills. Some investigate water-related fatalities, while others specialize in bringing to light the secrets of the long dead, using clues from badly decomposed bodies and even small fragments thereof. Take the bizarre case of a woman who brutally stabbed her husband to death and burned their residence to conceal the crime. She arranged a hasty funeral with no autopsy. But 15 years later, a witness came forward who cried murder. The man's remains were exhumed and sent to forensic anthropologist Dr. Douglas Owlsley at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C.
And as we begin to do this, one of the things that we note is that there are a number of ribs that show an abnormal appearance. On the end that would be on the side, we note that there is a complete incision, a cut that is sliced from the top of the rib completely through it. In other ribs on the left side, this is the left 10th rib, it also has a knife cut that is sliced completely through the rib. Okay, in examining these edges, you can tell that this bone has been sliced completely through. It's a very clean cut. It is the type of cut that would have been done with a fairly large knife.
As a result of Dr. Owlsley's forensic examination, the woman was convicted of murdering her husband. These days, with the extraordinary range and power of modern forensic techniques, arson is no longer a foolproof way to cover up homicide. In another, even more bizarre case from Dr. Owlsley's files, a killer incinerated his victim for 2 full days, certain that all traces would be obliterated. With only minute pieces of the body remaining, the murderer was in for a rude awakening.
For one thing, we can determine that this is an adult, that it is human, and by examining the changes that have occurred in this rib fragment, we can estimate the age of this individual as being between approximately 24 and 40 years of age. This is consistent with the missing person, who was 34 years of age at the time of her disappearance.
The only remaining bodily evidence, 3 charred tooth fragments, were mounted and subjected to precision, high-tech evaluation. The dental remnants were scanned with an electron microscope. Dr. Owlsley determined the fragments were consistent with dental records of the missing woman. In addition, the container used to burn the corpse was also traced to the suspect.
From this evidence, the jury convicted the man of murder, and he was given a sentence of 21 years to life imprisonment.
Forensic anthropologists are literally rewriting the history of the famous and the infamous. In 1874, a lone prospector emerged from the San Juan Mountains of Colorado without his 5 companions. Their bizarre fate was to become a ghoulish tale without equal in the annals of the Old West. The survivor of that ill-fated expedition was Alfred Packer. Jailed on suspicion of murder, he confessed and then escaped before being charged. Traveling artist John Randolph located the grisly murder scene and sketched it for a national publication. Afterwards, Randolph buried the remains, and the published sketches spread fear and horror throughout the West. Packer was captured 9 years later and was convicted of mass murder. He was initially accused of cutting up the bodies so he could eat their flesh. Alfred Packer became the most notorious cannibal of his time. But did Packer really commit that heinous crime, or were the bodies consumed by wild animals? James E. Stars, a law professor of forensics at George Washington University, led a team of forensic detectives to search out the answer to that very question. The well-preserved bones were inventoried and evaluated in the Human Identification Laboratory at the University of Arizona. Dr. Stars presented the findings from that expedition to a class of law and science students.
And here you have George California Noon and the marks in his skull. Would you believe 115 years in the ground? And you can still see the hatchet marks as clearly defined as you do. He had 16 hatchet blows in his skull. Every one of the 4 skulls had multiple strikes from a hatchet. As you see here, there are marks. This is the cannibalism. You can see the marks, little nicks here and there, nowhere near like the kind of trauma that was inflicted by the hatchet that he used. So clearly, these were defleshed, and in all probability, they were defleshed for the purposes of being cannibalized.
Although he was convicted, Packer was later pardoned. But 115 years later, the barren bones of his victims spoke with a clear voice about murder and cannibalism.
Discovery Channel Online.
People die in every possible medium and circumstance. Sometimes it's death by accident, but all too often, death has a more sinister face, and it frequently requires a specialized forensic investigator to make the determination. Accident or murder? Fatalities that occur in aquatic environments demand investigators who understand the specialized environment of water. These investigators work in a gravity-free medium, devoid of fingerprints, and subject to different forces than those of dry land. Tom Ebro of Aquatic Risk Management is such an aquatic detective.
I was Los Angeles County's aquatics director back in 1965 when I first started working with the medical examiner's office as the deputy coroner. It was Dr. Thomas Noguchi that personally provided me the specialized training and experience in such things as aquatics depth investigations and chain of evidence protocols and on-scene evidence gathering precision. And I still remember walking those halls of the dead and working together with the forensic pathologists doing just scores and scores of aquatics-related autopsies.
As an underwater specialist, he has investigated diving accidents, shark attacks, and homicides. In a Washington State drowning, a man named Randy Roth lost his second wife in an apparent boating accident. His first wife had also ostensibly died accidentally. Tom Ebro was called in to evaluate and reconstruct the man's version of events.
Well, this was a murder investigation. As an aquatic expert, I was called in to work with the King County Sheriff's Office to evaluate the claims that Randy Roth was making.
She was holding on to the side of it in an attempt to climb in, and I had informed her that I would swim around to the other side and hold the opposite side that she could. It would be stabilized and she could climb back into it. And at the time she was holding the rope, when the wake came by, it did in fact contribute. She was looking the raft over while she was holding on to the raft for support. She was floating face down when I righted the raft.
So we analyzed each detail of the versions that he offered regarding what happened to his wife, and we investigated, and we actually reconstructed all the events on the lake, and it didn't square with the truth.
Randy Roth almost got away with murder, but due to Tom Ebro's efforts, he was instead convicted of murder. I do hope you have enjoyed your excursion into the realm of the strange and unusual. We now return you to your well-ordered lives. But remember to expect the unexpected. For when one has touched another reality, the possibilities suddenly become endless, don't they? I'm Jay Robinson.
Are you tattooed? Check out Discovery.com for a look at the body art story. Don't miss a minute of this unique Discovery Online adventure. And ready to keep up with Mother Nature? If so, check out Earth Alert, also at Discovery.com.